Welcome in. Welcome in. More playoff editions of the Face Mask Podcast. John Alzayas, Nick Pade. John, how's it going?
Dude, I got knocked out in both of my playoff matchups, so I'm not great.
You
from
did.
that
I'm
perspective,
sorry.
But being a Bills fan, I'm phenomenal right now.
You take the good with the bad. I mean, they are. I don't know how. What's the likelihood? I feel like it's not high that they get the 1 seed, but they're not like dead from that race.
Yeah, I mean, it could happen. It could happen.
They would need some help. Obviously, Kansas City would need to falter.
Right. But they did just beat the Steelers.
But,
so,
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about a few Steelers
They're right
today.
there in it. We are. We're going to talk about a couple people today. The Steelers being one of those teams. Focusing on... I think we're focusing first on guys to drop. These guys are probably more likely already on your roster. And then subsequently, we will talk about players that probably are less owned, less likely to be owned.
Yeah, dude,
that are maybe still floating out there.
I don't know about you, but it took me a long time to learn when it was okay to drop people and when it was okay to move on. And just trust your gut with people, because lots of times you see the big name and you think, oh, there's no way I can drop this guy. But, you hold on to him and 6 weeks later, he's basically done nothing.
If he's on the bench.
I had a couple of those guys this year. That was the reason why
he's
I am
not
not
doing
in the playoffs.
anything. Yeah. I have a matchup this week in that league, and I have 3 defenses in there right now, and I dropped 2 guys on my bench who I knew I wasn't going to play the rest of the season. So it looks a little weird, it looks funky, but in one scenario or in one way of looking at it, I'm kind of playing defense, not letting the other team still in contention to maybe look ahead and look for a defense with an ideal situation that I like. And then 2, you're just cutting dead weight. Again, at this point in the season, if he's not starting, he's replaceable. So with that in mind, Jod, for those that are still in contention for a league championship, but maybe they're saddled, maybe their bench is saddled with a guy who they don't know what to do with, who do we say goodbye to? Whose time has come? Where and with whom are we severing ties?
So this might be a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction, because in 2 of my biggest leagues, I have James Conner.
I mean, it is fantasy football, so knee-jerk reactions.
Well, James Conner, he hasn't been great, and he basically lost me the last game in both of the leagues where I have him as basically my RB1. And now he's got an injured quad.
Yeah, just under 2 points.
He's uncertain for week 15. In the past 5 games he's played, and he's been injured in and out of the past 8 games. But in the past 5 games he's played, he's only averaging 3.3 yards per carry.
Not great.
Not to mention that this team passes the sixth most in the NFL. They pass the ball 62.9% of the time. And in the past 3 games, the Steelers lead the league in pass percentage. In the past 3 games, they're up to 73.5. So it's not trending in the right direction. You want that number to come down a little bit. But the bottom line is James Conner hasn't been an RB2 since week 8. You haven't been able to rely on any Steelers running back in the back half of the season. And he's 98% rostered right now. I don't think he's uncertain for week 15. Even if he plays, he's ineffective. So I think this is a rare guy. He's thought of as an RB2, but I think you can cut him.
The time has come.
And I don't think anybody in this backfield is going to be roster worthy. I mean, people are saying if James Conner is out, go pick up Benny Snell. I would stay away from the whole run game here.
Yeah.
Because like I said, if they're passing 73.5% of the time, there's no work for running backs. You're living on a hope and a prayer.
he's been on the COVID list, so maybe that impacted him. And then when Connor is out, it's been a full blown committee. So yeah, I'm okay with dropping James Conner, even though he's healthy now. Hasn't been productive. One guy who hasn't been healthy. This is one of the most frustrating, I would say, injury situations of this 2020 season, and that is the absolute complete bumbling failure by the Detroit Lions to appropriately handle the situation with Kenny Golladay.
It's mind-boggling.
It's awful. It's atrocious. Has not played since week 8. Has not practiced since week 8. And they have, the Lions have suggested that he's week to week since then. By all accounts, he hasn't been close to practicing at all. Maybe once like week 14, but has been ruled out each game. Doesn't seem close to returning. The Lions are out of it now. Matthew Stafford seems likely. Maybe he plays through injury week 15, but seems likely to sit. So that's even more incentive for the Lions to shut down guys like Golladay. Even if they won't do it, it is time to cut ties. If you need an IR spot or if you just need a roster spot, I don't see Kenny Golladay returning to the field this year. It's coming like 6 weeks too late, but yeah, he's not going to help at this point. Anybody else on your roster, you could replace that with a backup running back.
Yeah, and this is another guy I had on one of my teams, and I basically kept him all season with the hope that he would come back and be the wide receiver one that we all wanted. But what are you supposed to do if the team doesn't give out the proper information? It's frustrating. And this is a guy we all thought was going to be a wide receiver one coming into the season, but now he's not
high
young.
3rd round pick.
He's in a contract year. They have so chances are there's a good chance he could be elsewhere next year. So the coaching staff isn't rushing him to be back. He's not rushing, I would think, to be back in the lineup to finish out the season, because what reason does he have to risk injury in a contract year?
None.
And yeah, you're right. Between his own injury, the ineptitude of the coaching staff and the GM, and just the question mark we have at quarterback, I don't think you can trust him at all.
No, and it's a bad situation. Oh, the dog has something to say about that. He doesn't like Kenny Golladay either. I agree, bud. No, it's just an unfortunate situation. He's a guy who is normally a wide receiver one. It hasn't worked out. Who else we got?
Well, this is another guy who some people thought he was an wide receiver one coming into the season, and just he's had some weeks, but most of them were with it's Devontae Parker, and he's only a wide receiver one, or in the wide receiver one conversation when Ryan Fitzpatrick is playing, and Ryan Fitzpatrick isn't playing anymore.
No. Yeah, it's kind of that one's kind of straightforward. It's kind of easy. Devontae Parker became a low-end floor play when Tua entered the lineup. Now, we didn't
It's not
know
even
that.
He has one wide receiver 2 game with Tua, and that's against Denver, who coincidentally is giving up the most points to opposing fantasy defenses. Now, there isn't a direct correlation there, but I think you can connect the dots. His value is always contingent on Ryan Fitzpatrick playing. Tua is a much safer passer, and Parker will not get the looks he needs, even if he was 100% healthy, and now he has an injured hammy.
Always bad.
He was playing.
Always
he's been
scary
playing
to
the last half of the season without Preston Williams. Now Mike Gesicki is going to be out, so you would think this is a smash play for a guy like Parker, but you cannot trust him at all, especially with him being injured, and he's 90% rostered right now. And I think you can let him go.
Time to go. Yeah, I mean, the one saving grace for Parker was they have still been looking at him in the red zone, but even a 1-yard touchdown, and if that's, you're expecting more than 7 fantasy points from a guy like Devontae Parker. It has not come together with Tua. Maybe they develop some chemistry in the offseason and going into year 2 with Tua as the starter. Maybe Parker is a little bit better, but that's a conversation for the offseason when we're discussing ADP. For now, I agree that Parker is not someone you can trust. That's been proven.
I will say this too: he is not a young receiver. He's turning 28. And next season, Miami has 2 firsts and 2 seconds, and I would bet on them getting talent around their young quarterback. So there's a chance that where Devontae Parker comes into the season next season, and he's their wide receiver 2, and he's not their wide receiver 1. So even looking into next season, you would
maybe they sign Kenny Golladay.
Maybe they do, or Allen Robinson. There's another guy.
Oh, there you go. It'd be interesting to see what happens with Parker's value if that were to happen. His ADP would plummet, and then he could be an interesting grab. Anyway, separate conversation. John, I want to move on. Switch to the running backs. I have 2 guys here. This is a tag team. They both kind of hurts. One more than the other, but it's the Cincinnati Bengals.
That hurts.
Yeah, I was a big Joe Mixon guy going into this season. That was poor planning, I guess, by me. Now, obviously, the Joe Burrow injury threw a wrench into the entire situation, but it's hard to rely on running backs that are on teams where you expect them to be mediocre or worse, and then they are, in fact, mediocre or worse, and that's the Bengals. Didn't come together for Mixon this year. He had 1 smash game, a lot of disappointing performances, and then has been injured for essentially the entire second half of the year. And his chances of returning are, dwindling by the day. What incentive do the Bengals have to bring him back? As for Gio Bernard, who has filled in decently for Mixon here and there, and some good weeks, some very bad weeks. I think, again, that's tied directly to Joe Burrow's out for the season. The Bengals are rotating 2 bad backup quarterbacks in there between Brandon Allen and Ryan Finley. It's just a bad offense. And when bad offenses get stuck and tied down by bad quarterbacks, it's really hard to do anything for anyone. This Bengals offensive line is already not good, something they sorely need to address in the offseason. So for me, and then on top of that, the Bengals are on the road against Pittsburgh, who just lost 2 in a row on Monday night. So that's as brutal a matchup as it gets. They do get Houston week 16. That's a beautiful matchup. But again, I cannot overlook the fact that now with these, it's almost like a rotating backup quarterback situation. This is just a bad offense. Mixon is still heavily rostered in most leagues. Gio maybe less so, but if you need the space, you're no longer relying on either of those guys. Gio especially, and then if push comes to shove, I do think Mixon at this point is a safe drop.
Yeah, a lot like Kenny Golladay. There's no reason to rush this guy back. And I would just like to point out that now we are 4 for 4 on people that I have on my teams. So this list is going great. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100%. If I have any of the Bengals backfield owned, I would drop them, except for Samaje Perine.
For dynasty purposes?
I don't know. As
a deep stat, you just like Samaje. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, no, avoid the Bengals. Avoid the Bengals in general.
Yeah, and I want to move on to another backfield, and that's the Arizona backfield. And I have nothing bad to say about Kenyon Drake. The guy.
He's come on strong. Like, he's actually been decent.
Looks like he's reestablished himself as the RB1 there moving forward, and he might even have worked himself in the second half of the season into a new contract. But the guy that I want to bring up here is Chase Edmonds. I think Chase Edmonds is just a handcuff. I think you hold him if you're the Drake owner. But this is a guy who's 68% rostered in Yahoo leagues. I don't think he needs to be 68% rostered. People are rostering him under the impression that he is the 1A and not a handcuff. And I think these past few games have shown that he is just a handcuff in this offense.
Chase Edmonds doesn't get any goal line work for the Cardinals. Kenyon Drake gets all of that, and then obviously you still have Kyler who can vulture rushing production at any time. So Edmonds, week to week chances of getting in the end zone are they're not very strong. And yeah, like when you're a change of pace back, if you don't score, the odds are you're gonna put up some okay numbers, some floor play numbers when it comes to fantasy, but nothing startable. And to your point about 68% rostered, something tells me the 68% rostered, not all of those people are Kenyon Drake owners. So yeah, if you need the space, you maybe the Kenyon Drake owner is still in it and you don't want to give up Edmonds to that guy, but you need to worry about your own team first. And if there's a guy out there who might get an opportunity in week 15 and or week 16, much more intriguing, much more attractive of an ad than Chase Edmonds.
A lot of these are addition by subtraction, and you do have to take into account that if you were to drop a Kenny Golladay and another league owner in your league picks him up, they have to drop somebody to do that, and that person that they drop could be somebody that you could use, and they're just missing out on. So there's always that too.
Yep, there's always a give and take. I have one more. I have one more guy I want to touch on before we move to guys to pivot to instead of from, and that is a tight end in this awful landscape of tight ends that we have been enduring for several years now, where all you need to be is a deep streamer to also have tight end one appeal.
You basically need to be able to score touchdowns. That's it.
That's pretty much it. That's all you're asking for. But in the situation in Tennessee, the Tennessee Titans currently have a full-blown tight end committee. That includes Anthony Firkser and now Jeff Swain, who had 3 catches for 30 yards and a touchdown week 14. All this to say, Jonnu Smith, who was looking real strong coming into the season following the departure of Delaney Walker last year, Jonnu Smith is now part of a committee. Jonnu Smith has 14 catches since week 8. So he's only averaging about 2 catches a week. It's time. And I know that he's in a great offense. And again, like you said, all he needs to do is catch a touchdown to have some type of like week to week relevance. But that hasn't happened recently. The production is not there. He's getting vultured for touchdowns from both Swain and Firkser. He has had some injury issues here and there. I know it can be tough to get rid of a tight end, especially when it can be a barren wasteland on the waiver wire, but there has got to be a better option right now than Jonnu Smith. And I know he's tied to a good offense, but it's just not working out.
And the offense that you're talking about, it's good because it's hyper efficient. Everybody on that offense makes the most of the minimal touches that they get. You're not going to see Ryan Tannehill go out and throw the ball 40 times. Just not.
Right.
So a guy like Jonnu Smith was already dealing with a lower amount of targets, equitable target share, but lower amount of targets than a lot of the other TE1s that were in the same range. Now, if you split that up even more, and you could make the argument then that Firkser is the tight end to own in this offense. You could make that point. And this whole sea change came about when Taylor Lewan got injured, their left tackle, because now they needed tight ends to stay in and block more. And we saw
additional blockers,
a distinct change in Jonnu Smith's usage as soon as this happened. As soon as it happened.
Since week 6, he has 2 games where he scored at least 10 points, and those were that 10 points was literally what he scored, and the highest he has done, again, since week 6. Other than that, less than 2, 3.9, so less than 4. He had 8.5. That had a lot to do with an end-around rushing score at the goal line against the Colts, so a little bit of a fluke. And then weeks 12 and 13, 0 before 3.3 week 14. The production is just not there.
This is another guy that's in his contract year. So they're probably looking for other options at the tight end position, which is why they're looking at guys like Ferkser, because they know that they have him signed through next season and don't have to go out and shell for probably a hefty contract to a guy like Johnny Smith, because I think he deserves a hefty contract.
And he could still get it.
He could still get it.
But the receiving production has not been there. If you need the roster spot, I say it's fine to get rid of him.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I have
So,
one.
do
I
we have any more?
more guy here, and this one.
Let's
this
do one
one's gonna
more.
Hurt some people. This one's gonna hurt.
Okay.
I don't have a ton to say here, but I will give you credit again because you wrote a great article at the beginning of the year about how Christian McCaffrey got over 400 touches and will not be the same this year. He's played what? 2 games this season?
Yeah, I think he played 3.
games. This team is not in playoff contention. This team has no reason to play him. He's not in a contract year, but there's no reason for them to risk their franchise player in a meaningless game.
You would think.
And right now he's 99% rostered.
Oof.
So yes, this is a guy who can win you a week. So while the temptation is there to think, oh, but what if he just comes back in week 16 and I make it to week 16? That's all well and good. But this is a team that is tied in the NFC South. Is that the NFC South? With the Falcons at 4-9. They're going nowhere. They don't have a chance.
They're not making the playoffs.
They're not going to rush back the best running back in the NFL to play a meaningless game. They're just not.
You would think teams have done things
Matt
that are
Rule
dumber, but
seems like a smart person. I would bet on him not
I don't
doing
think.
this.
Yeah, I don't think they will. I can't imagine they will. Like you said, what's the point? What's the incentive? And again, he came back. He played. McCaffrey played the first 2 weeks of the season, missed the next 6, came back week 9, scored 30 fantasy points. So he can basically roll out of bed after not playing football for 2 months and get 2 touchdowns. No one's denying McCaffrey's talent. The problem is he's been hurt all year. Why bring him back? Why do the Panthers bring him back? It doesn't make sense. Let him reload next year when they would conceivably try to be in playoff contention. It's tough. I would say the Panthers have left the window open that he does return this year. It seems he hasn't been ruled out for week 15 yet, but the language and dialogue hasn't been positive. So, the chances dwindle by the hour at this point. So it's tough. But yeah, I mean, if you need the roster spot, honestly, at this point, if you're still playing and you drafted McCaffrey first overall, you probably have a solid team top to bottom. So, you may have some good running back options where if a McCaffrey comes back and he's in a timeshare just because they don't want to overwork him, yeah, it's tough. I could see getting rid of him. Obviously, you would want a guy like that week 16, but number one, you got to get there first, and 2, how likely is it that he plays? I would say not good.
Right. I mean, if you didn't need him for that 1 week he came back and played like an RB1, think of some of the guys you could have picked up in the middle of the season that could have helped your team. The same thing could be said for the last 2 games. You could find a guy, and we're going to get into some of these guys in a sec here. You can find some guys
like somebody probably cut Cam Akers or something,
and will be more valuable to your team's winning the championship than Christian McCaffrey on your bench.
Yeah. So let's talk about some guys that we like for the last 2 weeks of the season. Maybe 3 if some of you play week 17 because you're psychos, but. Who do we have as guys who are maybe not heavily rostered, who are worthy ads and maybe even worthy starts?
So I'm going to work my way backwards. So I'm going to go from guys that are most rostered, and then we're gonna work our way back to guys that are least rostered. And the guy that I want to talk about first is Nelson Agholor.
Aggie.
You hate him because you're an Eagles fan.
I don't hate him. It was his. I don't hate him.
You just don't.
I don't hate the guy.
To think highly of him.
I mean, yeah, it's But go ahead. Sell me Nelson Aguilar
has been the wide receiver 33 on the season, right behind Brandon Cooks. Now, if you were to say Brandon Cooks is on the wire in 54% of leagues, would you be rushing to go and see if he's on the wire in yours and picking him up? I would.
I mean, would I rush? I guess so, just because Will Fuller's out.
If I had a guy like Kenny Golladay or Devontae Parker or any of those guys that we mentioned up above, I would rather
Brandon Cooks is a viable replacement.
Have Nelson Aguilar.
Oh, Nelson Aguilar is also a viable replacement. Yeah,
he's available in 54% of leagues. Like I said, he's right behind Brandon Cooks in wide receiver rankings for a half PPR. And Henry Ruggs is out. He's on the COVID list. He could be on the COVID list for the next 2 weeks. So if you're looking for a wide receiver spot start for the next 2 weeks, I think you could do a lot worse than Nelson Aguilar.
Yeah, I mean, Derek Carr makes a lot of safe throws. He typically plays it safe. He's not somebody who takes deep shots, and Aguilar has been that guy. Aguilar can go deep, and Carr takes those looks every now and then, but Carr is a pretty conservative passer, and Aguilar has operated as something of a safety valve for him, other than Darren Waller, of course. The only concern I have with Ruggs being out is could that, does he open things up for the Raiders offense just by being out there with his speed? And will that limit the Raiders?
It's not like they utilize it
a little bit with what they want to do.
Kansas City game where Ruggs blew up. They're not extending the field on every other possession with Henry Ruggs. It's really when we need it, we'll uncork it and see if this works. But for the most part, their game plan has been Darren Waller, Nelson Aguilar.
Yeah, and my point was not necessarily Henry Ruggs' stats, his production. It's just a matter of his speed has to be respected when he's out there. All that being said, I agree with you that Nelson Aguilar is absolutely a viable option because on the flip side of what I was just talking about with Henry Ruggs is now those 3-4 targets that he was getting. I mean, Darren Waller's snap share and target share is already safe and locked in. Those targets are likely going to go to, maybe Aguilar gets 3 of them, maybe Renfrow gets 1, but Aguilar is the starter. So I agree that he's a viable option against a not very impressive Chargers defense. So it is a Thursday night game.
James just went on the COVID IR list too, so that's a boost for Nelson Aguilar's outlook for at least just the next game.
Okay. There you go. Who else do we got? You want to take your whole list and then I'll take mine?
I want to bounce this guy off because I know that you have some thoughts about other people in the offense, and that's John Brown for the Bills.
Smokey. I love Smokey.
He's back from IR, and I think he's proven that he's a high-end wide receiver 3, low-end wide receiver 2 when healthy playing for the Bills.
Yeah, more on the 2 side with the way that their passing offense has played this year.
Right, there are a ton of mouths to feed for the Bills, but the Bills are second in pass attempts and first in 4 wide sets in the NFL. So just like we talked about how for James Conner, that team is passing a ton, so it's not good for him. This team is passing a ton, and it's good
it is
for John
good for
Brown.
wide receivers.
Right, exactly. So basically, it comes down to this is a guy who's available in 59% of leagues, and he could be a wide receiver 2 for you to finish out the season.
That's crazy. I know he got hurt, and I know he missed 3 games, but that number seems high.
It does, which is why he's on my list.
For the amount of leagues. If he's available in that number of leagues, wake your ass up and go pick him up.
Yes.
I can't stress that enough. I would have had I would have had him on my team last week if he were available. But to that point, I didn't realize John Brown was so heavily available. One of my suggestions was actually going to be Gabe Davis. Look, here's to piggyback off of your point. If John Brown is available, go get him. But if he's taken and you need a wide receiver, you could do worse than Gabriel Davis. Now, it might be this might be with the return of John Brown, this might be more of a speculative bench add as opposed to just automatic plug into the starting lineup. But if any other Bills receiver were to miss, if John Brown turns out he can't play, misses week 15, Gabriel Davis becomes an interesting flyer because he's caught a touchdown every game that he's started. And to that point, he will start if either, if John Brown or hopefully not, but if Stephon Diggs, if either one of them had to miss time, Cole Beasley is going to retain his role as the slot receiver. Gabe Davis is going to be starting on the outside, and he is a deep threat who, again, has been catching scores. I think 3 touchdowns in his last 3 starts, which, all were when John Brown was out. So, yeah, if John Brown is available, go get him. But if he's not, maybe go take a look at Gabriel Davis.
Gabe Davis was kind of producing even when John Brown was in the lineup because they were using Gabe Davis as their main red zone weapon because they don't use tight ends like other teams do on this offense. So they were using Gabe Davis as that bigger-bodied guy in the red zone who's sure-handed. I can think of 4 off the top of my head, 4 touchdowns that he's made where red zone touchdowns. And you're right. In every game that he's started, he's scored a touchdown, even when he's only getting, 4 targets. So
but if one of them is in the end zone and he catches it, that's all you need, and he has delivered so far.
When you first sent me your list of who you were going to talk about, and I first sent you my list, I thought, okay, we're going to butt heads a little bit here on John Brown, Gabe Davis. But I think Gabe Davis is a play even if John Brown / when John Brown comes back because Gabe Davis is efficient. This offense is efficient, and they'll use him in the red zone regardless. John Brown is not a red zone guy, and I think Gabe Davis is.
Yeah, no, they look his way when they get close to scoring. So, no, I like it. It's all fun and friendly games here on the Face Mask podcast. There's no debate. That's not true. There's some debate, but not on this one. But who else we got?
Another guy I got is Lyndon B. Johnson, aka Lynn Bowden.
Hey, it's a great president.
He's
got emphasis on. I lose the term. I use the term "great" loosely.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know where you're going. I don't know.
We're not going down that rabbit hole today.
Yeah, I'm just gonna move on.
No, let's just talk about Lynn Bowden.
Yes, he's got wide receiver, running back eligibility in Yahoo leagues. I can't attest to other leagues, but that's always a plus.
I think he's just a wide receiver in ESPN.
As he should be. I would think in 2021 he will be a full wide receiver. This is a guy that just led the Dolphins receivers in pass routes run as a running back. Because when the Raiders drafted him, they drafted him to be their running back. Gesicki and Parker are going to be out for Week 15. His competition for targets is Jakeem Grant and Mac Hollins. He's available in 74% of leagues as of this morning. So, post-waiver claims,
go get him.
He's still available in 74% of leagues.
Pick him up.
He got 9 targets last game. While he might lose out some of those running back touches if, Salvon Ahmed or Gaskin comes back, or if DeAndre Washington takes a little bit more of that role. But I don't think he's going to stop catching passes here because they don't have anybody else to throw to.
No, and they traded for him. They gave up draft capital to get him, so you got to figure they want to use him.
And you got to be thinking this is a guy that was practicing with Tua on the practice squad on the scout team.
Yeah.
When Fitz was playing with the starters, so this is a guy that probably already has built-in chemistry.
Yeah, Tua was probably leading the second team, or maybe some instances the third team, and Bowden probably. Now Bowden was a late addition to the team as far as the offseason or the preseason goes, but yeah, I mean obviously they've had the season to kind of get in sync.
They also
and now he's got his opportunity.
They also decided to trade away Isaiah Ford halfway through the season when they already lost Preston Williams. You would think they would want to hold on to a guy like that, but they decided to let him go because maybe they knew what they had in a guy like Lynn Bowden, and all they needed to do was catch up with the playbook.
Right, yeah, maybe he just wasn't ready, but they felt comfortable that they had a guy moving forward that they wanted to get out there. It's just the Dolphins have. I got to give the Dolphins credit. They seem to. They seem
They're building their organization well.
And with patience. Like they're not rushing guys out there. They didn't rush Tua out there until they felt ready to put him out there. Same deal. The Raiders, I think, kind of gave up on Boda kind of quickly. Obviously, they drafted him and then traded him in the same year. You never see that happen.
He wasn't exactly what they needed him to be coming in, and they swerved.
Yeah, maybe they miscalculated on their analysis and they moved him to the Dolphins, and maybe that was a mistake by the Raiders. We'll find out.
And then he turned out to be more of a wide receiver, and they didn't want a Tariq Cohen, Naheem Hines type.
Well, that would be silly of them because those are valuable pieces. But yeah, I mean, what are you going to do? But no, that makes a lot of sense. He's going to have a huge opportunity. So that alone makes him, the type of guy that you add to your bench, and maybe you plug in as a third receiver. No, I don't hate that at all. Speaking of receivers, I know we're going a little heavier on them, but this is that time of year where it's still easier to find receivers than running backs. So I want to highlight a few.
And like we pointed out earlier on, a lot of the wide receivers are just guys that you can give up on. You can give up on Kenny Golladay at this point. You can give up on Devontae Parker at this point. So
right, there's guys who are in better situations who have a much better chance at better production. I want to go back to Pittsburgh. To the point of the passing offense going off. Now, obviously, the Steelers are a difficult situation to navigate because they have Deontay Johnson, they have Juju Smith-Schuster, they have Chase Claypool, and all three have done well all at different times of the year. But James Washington is still on the team, is still a deep threat, and caught a bomb against the Bills on Sunday night after Deontay Johnson had a very strange quarter and a half being benched. Will that happen again? I don't know. Deontay has had drop issues this year, so maybe the Steelers' patience is running thin. And then on top of that, Claypool has been up and down. He's a rookie. And Juju has been up and down. So while it's, you can't necessarily say that Washington is ahead of any of those on the depth chart, especially not Deontay or Juju, but with this passing offense operating the way it is, and I know Roethlisberger hasn't been exactly stellar the past 4 weeks, but to your point, the Pittsburgh Steelers are throwing the ball. And if they're in a situation where they're trailing, even if it's 7 points, they're going to be throwing for the duration of the game. And Washington should be a factor. He will be a threat to catch a bomb.
At this point, it's pretty common knowledge that the Steelers' running game is not working. I could ask the random person on the street what they thought of the Steelers' run game, and they would tell me. I could ask my cat, and he would meow at me. But I would know what that meow would mean.
It would be, it's bad. It's all bad.
The Steelers know they can't run the ball right now, with no matter who is in there. They thought they had a lightning bug and Anthony McFarland, and not even a lightning bug can get this running game going. So they're going to keep.
Yeah, jury's still out on him.
Yes, it is. But I'm just talking about for this season. They want to get back on a winning track going into the playoffs because they're going to be in the playoffs. They just need to get back to winning to feel like to get back in the groove. They don't want to be moving into the playoffs cold, especially because that division is a hot division. So they do have some contention.
Right, and they've lost 2 straight, exactly. So they want to get back on track.
This is a team that knows they have to throw
so they want to do what works
to win.
Yep, do what works for them.
The most efficient piece has been Eric Ebron all season. I think James Washington has been overshadowed by every single wide receiver receiving piece in this offense, but I think he's one of the most... when they really need a guy to go up and get it, they seem to go to him.
Yeah, they go to him for their deep shots.
Even over Claypool sometimes.
It's him and Claypool.
Even over Claypool
it's him and Claypool.
Sometimes if they needed somebody to go and out-muscle, out-physical a guy, they go to James Washington.
Yeah, Juju and Deontay they operate a little bit more like Eric Ebron, middle of the field, short passes, efficient, quick passes, and then Deontay especially is huge with yards after the catch. But Washington is a downfield threat, and with those guys, all it takes is one play. So if he's out there and he's pretty widely available in a lot of Yahoo and ESPN leagues. If you need a receiver, there's worse situations than on a good offense that throws the ball a lot.
They're obviously trying to switch things up a little bit, and I wouldn't be surprised if they featured James Washington more, just to see what they have. And this is a guy, again, bring this up, contract year. So maybe
these are important times. Yeah,
they want to get him going to really see what he does in this postseason, so they can make an informed decision about him.
Yeah, this would be the time to do that.
Because they really have never given this guy a full-time role with a good quarterback.
Well, I mean, I think he struggled as a younger player right out of the gate. They still had Antonio Brown for 1 year when he was on the team.
I think he's a lot better than the community gives him credit for. I think James Washington
was exploding. Yeah, I mean, there wasn't really a role for him yet. And he was a young guy, so these things sometimes take a little time to marinate. So maybe this is his breaking out party.
Could be.
We'll see. Who else we got? Who else should people add?
I got one more guy who I'm smitten with.
Okay.
And I'm saying smitten because I'm talking about Irv Smith.
Irv Smitten? Yes. There we go. Smitten with Irv.
Exactly. Dude, I've been a fan of this guy since he came into the league.
He's a talent. There's no doubt.
Undersized, super athletic tight end who, if used correctly, could be Aaron Hernandez. Hopefully without the murdering. That would be nice.
Yeah, please stay out of trouble, Irv.
So he's been competing with Kyle Rudolph for the past 2 years. And Kyle Rudolph last week had a foot injury. Today came out, still dealing with the foot injury, did not practice. Irv Smith has had a TD in 2 of the last 3 games he has played. And in one of those games, he had 2 TDs.
Was that last week? Did he have 2 last week?
3 weeks ago, because he missed a game in between.
I think it was just one last week, but he's been productive.
And now he goes up against Chicago, who gives the fourth most points up to tight ends.
Uh-oh.
This is a team you do not attack with your running backs. This is a team you do not attack with your wide receivers. You go after them with your tight ends. And then in Week 16, they play New Orleans. New Orleans is 20th against tight ends, but I looked at the tight ends they played. Hawkinson and Waller were the best, and then it was, Ross
a lot of random guys. And just with that matchup in general, the Vikings are going to have to throw to keep pace with the Saints.
Exactly.
Just in general, regardless, And that offense has actually been sneaky efficient throwing the ball. Everybody thinks the Vikings, they just immediately go to Dalvin Cook. This passing offense is working this year.
I think that's a holdover from last season when Kevin Stefanski was their running their offensive schemes.
Yeah.
Since this season,
I think they kept some of that.
Since the emergence of Justin Jefferson, this team has pretty much been a 50-50 split between the run and the pass. And I think they need to rely more on the passing game because their running backs are kind of beat up. It seems every other game, Dalvin Cook is coming out with an injury here or there. And he seems to make it through the game, but there's always a scare
thankfully,
where he's laying down on the field for 2-3 minutes.
News just came down that Alexander Mattison, who went through an appendectomy procedure a couple weeks ago, remains out of practice today. So not a good start to the week for the Vikings backup running back. You probably want to try. You're not going to be able to limit Dalvin Cook's numbers or touches when he's one of the only options. But this offense can throw and throws
And
well
Irv Smith-
because Kirk Cousins has been effective, and Irv Smith is going to be a
Irv
part
Smith
of that.
isn't going to catch a ton of passes.
No, but he could catch a
But
touchdown,
in
and
that
that's all we
game where
want from
he had
tight
two
ends.
TDs, he had 2 targets, and he had 2 receptions in the red zone, and those 2 receptions both went for TDs. That's all. That's all you can
That
ask
worked.
for.
That's a
That gives
tight.
you
That's all you can ask
14
for from a
points on 2
tight end
targets.
play.
I'll take that.
That is unreal.
So you mentioned a guy,
efficiency.
Jonnu Smith, as a guy that you think you can just give up on. What's his narrative? Hyper efficient, super tight end or touchdown dependent, but he gets those touchdowns. I think the same thing can be said about Irv Smith Jr. and he's not getting the recognition.
And Irv Smith is not in a tight end committee like Jonnu Smith is. If Kyle Rudolph misses, Irv Smith is the guy
And
at
he's
the position,
available.
and he'll
he's
be
available
involved.
in 88% of leagues right now. Yeah.
Go get him. Winding this down, John, I think this was effective. I hope everybody had an opportunity to, if this impacted you, if you had a player that was involved, hopefully we were able to help you, navigate these murky waters as we wind the season down. But I got 2 more guys. These are kind of deep flyers. Tyron Johnson, wide receiver for the Chargers. Now, obviously, they play Thursday night, tomorrow night against the Raiders. So this is a quick turnaround. I don't know if you want to make a decision this quickly, but Mike Williams, questionable for Thursday Night Football. Sounds like he might be on the wrong side of questionable. And Tyron Johnson has kind of emerged as a backup deep threat for the Chargers. The Raiders are going to have a ton of guys on defense that are out in this game, including Jonathan Abram, their star safety. So Justin Herbert might pop this game. So Tyron Johnson, all he has to do is catch a bomb. I like his matchup. I like his opportunity, especially if Mike Williams is out. Any thoughts there? Or?
Yeah, I think now with Eckler coming back, this offense is really, really dangerous.
Yeah.
And I think
things open up.
With even, they can't rely on a guy like Mike Williams right now, but with the balance and electricity that a guy like Eckler brings, I think that makes it easier for guys like Tyron Johnson to step in and be effective.
Yeah, so he's a wide receiver 4. If you play a deeper league, might be a guy worth taking a flyer on in a plus matchup. And then I want to go back to the tight ends because I think it makes sense to focus on trying to find tight ends to stream again as we wind the season down. I'm going to wrap things up with Arizona Cardinals tight end Dan Arnold, who has emerged the past couple of weeks. He has come out of nowhere. Maybe not so much nowhere. Kyler Murray, is kind of common knowledge at this point, has been dealing with an AC sprain or AC joint in his shoulder, which I think has limited his ability to throw the deep ball. So what does that translate to? More targets underneath. Dan Arnold has taken full opportunity of this situation. He is the pass-catching option in the tight end room for this Cardinals offense. Max Williams is kind of involved, and he might, he could totally vulture, and that would suck, but yeah, it's not. He's involved, but not to the extent. Right. Dan Arnold is the guy in this offense, and the Cardinals admitted in the offseason that they loved this guy. It took them a little while to get him integrated, but when you have guys like DeAndre Hopkins and Christian Kirk playing well and Kyler Murray's shoulder didn't hurt, you're going to go deep. The situation has changed. Dan Arnold is more needed, I think, now for some underneath throws, and he has turned that into multiple scores over the past couple of weeks. So, again, we always hammer home looking for if you don't have Travis Kelce, if you don't have Darren Waller, if you don't have TJ Hawkinson, you're just looking for a guy to get into the end zone. And to the same point of Irv Smith, Dan Arnold has been doing that as well. Those offenses are both pretty good passing offenses. The difference here is that Kyler Murray's shoulder could still be an issue for the rest of the season, and that means more underneath throws. I think Arnold is definitely worth a shot against leaky Eagles linebackers week 15, and then week 16 they play a brutally banged up 49ers team who can't even play in their own home stadium for the rest of the year. So
yeah,
Dan
I
Arnold,
like all those points.
See what he's got.
This team was thought of as a team that was going to come in and run a ton of spread, a ton of 4 wide.
Yeah.
They are still up there when compared to a lot of the other teams in the league, but they have a lot like the Rams last season. Towards the end of the season, the Cardinals have moved away from 4 wide and more towards featuring tight ends in their offense. And we're seeing Dan Arnold be the beneficiary of this as well. I do think you're exactly right in your diagnosis of Kyler Murray's shoulder injuries and what that's doing and that effect on the offense. But I think they're making a concerted effort to feature Dan Arnold more. He's a huge target. He's 6'5", and they don't have anybody
he's a big
that
guy.
size on their offense. Of course, they have DeAndre Hopkins who can go up and get it with the best of them. But as far as red zone options, this guy's has just as much chance as anybody in the league to go up and catch a touchdown week in, week out.
Yeah, he's an ideal red zone target for a good offense. I think that covers some of the guys we wanted to highlight, both good and bad, John. So
there's one more guy.
There's one
more guy I just want your quick thoughts on. I'm not going to speak on him at all, but I wanted to know your thoughts on Jeff Wilson Jr.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. How did I forget about Jeff Wilson? Thank you. Absolutely worth an ad. Like, I don't know what else to say. Jerick McKinnon has had his role reduced to special teamer. He hasn't had a touch since week 12. Not a single touch in over a month, or 3 weeks. Sorry. The point stands. It seems like the 49ers are moving forward with kind of like a 1A, 1B of Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson. And Raheem Mostert is obviously you can say this about anybody, but Raheem Mostert is an extreme injury risk on any given play. It's like he could pull a hammy at any time. Jeff Wilson has been a factor, has been involved. This remains an offense committed to the run game, maybe more than the vast majority of NFL teams. This is how they move the ball. And with backup quarterbacks, but with still a pretty good offensive line, they get the run game working, and they use multiple backs. But it's kind of become more of a two-man, it's a two-man show in San Francisco with Mostert and Wilson. Wilson is much more heavily available in most leagues. I think the 49ers are going to run out the string by continuing to do what they do best, just use their bread and butter. They're going to run the ball as they continue to, march out backup quarterbacks to end the season. Jeff Wilson, absolutely, week 15, week 16. If you need a guy, maybe you're the McCaffrey owner, you need a running back, and McCaffrey's ruled out. Jeff Wilson's your guy.
There you go. Couldn't have said it better myself. Actually, I could have, but I'll throw you a bone.
Yeah, let's not get carried away. I think that does it for our drop suggestions. Many of them come with a heavy heart, and our suggestions for replacing them. So if you've made it this far, congratulations. Thanks for listening. Good luck in your fantasy playoff matchups.